elevator speech on what are dense breasts?
I would say our breasts are made up of two things: fat and all the other stuff that allow us to produce milk. Those things that allow us to produce milk are white on a mammogram. That's your breast density. Breast cancer is also white. The problem is that it obscures cancer in a mammogram. And mammogram is our standard way of finding breast cancer in all breasts. So this diagram here is simply 4 different mammogram images. And it represents the 4 different categories of breast density. By law, your breast density is supposed to be spelled out in your mammogram report. So when we ask women to go find out their breast density, if they've had a mammogram, it should be simple enough to find out by reading your report. It's not always the case, but it should be. That's the whole thing. So category A on the left is what's called a fatty breast, meaning that there's not much density in it. So our breast is really made up of 2 things: fat and all the other things, the lobules, the duct, all the other things that make it possible for us to give milk, which is what our breasts are really for. I know they become very sexualized and all that, but that's what our breasts are really there for. So those 2 things. So if you're a woman who has the category A, you don't have a lot of those other things, and your breast is primarily made up of fat. And fat basically looks black on a mammogram. Good news for you, cancer looks white on a mammogram. So it shows right up beautifully. Look at that spot on that category A breast. Boom. A radiologist is going to see that, they're trained to find it. They will see it. Good stuff. And also category B, it's called scattered breast density. So it's more fat, less of the other stuff. You can still see pretty well. Plain old standard mammogram, 95, 98% of the cancers in those breasts are going to be found on a mammogram. And wonderful for those women. About 29 or 30% of all cancers are found in category AB women. Now, when you get to category C, which is something called heterogeneously dense, which is, less fat, more density, and category D, which is something called extremely dense, note how you start to lose being able to distinguish that white dot from the background image. By the time you get to D, you can't see it at all, and neither can anybody else. Radiologists are highly trained, they're smart, they're all of these things. They don't have bionic eyes. They just don't. They're not going to, we can't ask someone to see something in a picture that is simply not seeable. And 71% of all breast cancers are in C and D. Simply because, and no one really knows why, but the more dense your breasts, the higher your likelihood of getting breast cancer in the first place. So a woman of category D is 4 to 6 more times likely to be getting breast cancer in her lifetime than somebody of category A. So that, summary quickly on that is sometimes mammography fails those of us who need it the most because we have a higher risk in the first place.